Music is made from sounds organized in time. To really appreciate music, there's no substitute for actually hearing it. What might be visually salient on the page sometimes has very little to do with what stands out when we listen. Harmony and counterpoint exercises are music and therefore must be heard to be meaningful. Musical listening can be passive or active. In passive listening, we listen to somebody else play or sing. In active listening, we take part ourselves. Obviously, one person can't sing four-part harmony, but the teaching method used by many famous pedagogues, like Nadia Boulanger, requires the student to participate actively, that is, to sing and play. If you're working on a counterpoint exercise, for example, sing each line in turn while playing the others. Or if you're working on four-part harmony, treat the outer parts like a two-part counterpoint, since they're the frame that structures the whole. If you can't play a keyboard instrument, you can sing along with your computer, one line at a time. Try to sing phrases, not just successions of notes. First, work on the outer parts, then add the inner parts. Each part must be sung as musically as possible. This is essential to understanding harmony at a visceral level. Concepts are important, but without a lot of singing and playing, your understanding of harmony will remain too abstract. Working on harmony exercises in this way takes more time than just writing out solutions. But the extra time pays tremendous dividends for the serious musician, who eventually wants to be able to hear harmony internally without need of an instrument. This approach, singing and playing, is where harmony and ear training come together. Harmony, by definition, contains multiple parts. These parts may be more or less independent, but they are not literal doublings. The sound of the whole depends on whether it's sung or played, and if the latter, by which instruments. Here we'll talk about harmony for balanced, homogeneous ensembles, like a choir or a string orchestra. We start with a choir for two reasons. First, everybody has a voice. There's no need to be a trained singer to experience being part of an ensemble. Every music student should at some point sing in a choir. Second, voices blend with one another when written properly. This means we don't have to consider the way timbre affects the perception of dissonance. It's best, at first, to write for amateur singers, whose respective ranges will be narrower than those of professionals. The ranges given here should therefore be respected. It's important to remember, however, that vocal ranges are not absolute. Even with untrained voices, there's a certain amount of variation. One alto might not be able to go lower than the G given above. Another might be able to go on to F or even E. But the ranges given here are safe averages. Note that this kind of individual variety is not true of instrumental writing. If you write this note for the cellist won't be able to play it. Another essential point about voices is that the various registers are not equal. Voices, like brass instruments, get louder as they get higher. It's hard for an amateur choir to sing the first chord below at a forte dynamic. The same chord an octave higher is much easier to sing loud. Conversely, it's more difficult to attack the second chord softly. Both are possible, but composers should be aware of the difficulties involved. In simple homophonic textures, the upper parts in choral harmony don't usually have more than an octave between adjacent voices. This helps the ear to hear them as a blended mass. The exception is the bass, which may stray a little farther from the upper parts. Close spacing in the low register can sound rather thick and muddy. One of the basic rules in harmony is voice leading is usually conjunct. There are several reasons for this, but the most important is simply that voices are much more at ease moving in small intervals than in large leaps. Also, as we pointed out in our basic principles videos, moving by small intervals helps to make each line into a coherent sound stream. Without coherent voice leading, you just have isolated harmonic blocks, not lines. Normally, voices won't cross. Note that this restriction applies mainly to very basic voice leading, where the goal is mainly to keep it simple for the performers. In more advanced harmony, when the inner parts get more contrapuntal, certain kinds of crossing can occasionally occur.